So I guess for those people who are not aware of how booster drafts work, basically, you play with 8 players. 8 players are given 3 packs of 15 cards, and you pick one card from that pack, and then pass that pack to another person, and then you pick one card from each. So essentially, this was the first rare that I saw in the pack that I got. My Scornful Striker. Wasn't entirely sure how I wanted to build around this. So I figured, oh, okay, let's get it. I mean, there might be good other ones. Of course, I'm gonna just talk about the ones that are actually in my uh deck, and then the sideboard stuff that I drafted later on, I'll pick it up. So my first strike, whenever a player casts a creature spell, I mean, it's hard because it also hits me, but it was good. First strike 2/2 and good early blocker. Next was Merchant of Many Hats. I got this only particularly because I wanted uh to cast 2 drop. That's pretty good, and then a recursive ability being able if jump blocker and it dies, you have a way of bringing it back, which I didn't think much of until later. Synergies happen. I'll explain those later. Swamp Stare Trap. It's very good. I only got to use this once, as I recall. So basically, -5, minus. So it'll kill the small things. It won't kill the big things, but I use this in particular against the Beifong Bounty Hunters, which was a 4/4, has a death trigger that's very dangerous because it allows you to earthbend. So basically, I use this on the 4/4, so it becomes a 0/1. So even if it does die, the power of the creature is 0, so it isn't able to earthbend anything. So I found this very good removal, a good way to minimize big strong things that are outright killing them in case you avoid a death trigger. As well, also wise combat trick. Interesting because it's usually you don't get +1 counters on black. So, but this is a good one because you can put the -1/-1 and a +1/+1 on your creature. So basically, it's a difference of 2. So it's a pretty decent pump up for one black and one colorless. It's a lesson which goes with some lesson synergies, but I don't think I have lesson synergies in this deck. But more importantly, the +1/+1 counter, which means it's a permanent. It's not just a temporary +1/+1. The temporary -1/-1 on the enemy, but is a permanent for you. So this is pretty good. Sold out, exiled creature. Oh yeah, I should probably. So wait, Mai is the one of Azula's henchman sidekicks. Very cool. Looks like in this one she fought. I think she in this artwork she was fighting the Suki warriors, the Kyoshi warriors. Got like a bunch of dead Kyoshi warriors here, and she did. Uh, She's throwing knives. I guess that's the whole. And she's a non-bender, so when you have non-powered people, you kind of make them like super overpowered. Richard of Many Hats. I vaguely remember this guy. Basically, it's the same character wearing different hats, and he just keeps going back. So I think that's the interesting flavor of that, having like necromancy or resurrection in this. So he just comes back as a different person every time you cast it from the graveyard. Swamp Sir Snap Trap. Basically, this is when the swamp benders try to capture Appa, and they really literally try to eat him. So Azula always lies. Of course, this goes into the manipulation parts of it. Azula is a skilled warrior, but her true passion is emotional torment. Sold out. Is this Haru? Haru the Earthbender got sold out by a fellow village person because they were trying to uh, rally up a rebellion against the occupying Fire Nation. But this is a very good card. Exile target creature again. It removes uh doesn't cause death triggers, so at least that's pretty good. It's in at 4, which is pretty fine. Plus, if you're tricky with it, you can also get a clue token. Although I didn't really utilize this because why would I? I would only do this if I'm sure that my blocker would be able to survive the combat. Otherwise, I wouldn't. It would be a 1 for 2. It'd be kind of pointless. At a precision, of course, another artwork for Mai. As you can see, she's throwing her darts. Although one is like anime and one is like hyper realistic. Very good, especially for when you want to when casting when sacrifice mechanics matter. So this pairs well with Merchant of Many Hats. That's one synergy there. And then we go to the red part, the firebending portion. Basically, for review, firebending is basically Whenever this creature attacks, it gets you can whenever this creature attacks, add 2 red mana. This mana lasts until end of combat. So it's pretty good. As long as you have a lesson, so I wanted to make sure I at least one lesson in deck, so it activates the Firebending 2, which is not bad. Great for a 1/1/2. Then it can use its own mana to pump itself +1/+0. But if you have more sources of Firebending, it adds up. This is the other one that other synergy that I didn't notice until later games. Deserter's Disciple, basically another target creature you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked. So the synergy there is you declare your attackers. So you use this to tap because the Fire Nation cadets to be unblockable because it is plus 1/2, so it covers the 2 or less. But then once it goes through, before the damage actually passes through, you can use whatever mana that you have to pump it up. So this is either a 2 damage or 3 damage or 4 damage unblockable. So that was a big way to be able to slowly uh, whittle away life totals, which is a good big Rakdos thing. Highly the artful combat. I didn't really use this much as I thought I would. My particular one for this was that you can make pay. I misread it. I thought it was pay one target creature becomes unblockable, but actually it's target creature can't block this turn. Which is decent if you have like if your enemy has like one big blocker, but it wasn't really much of a the use case for this was a separate thing that I'll bring up. Next is Fire Nation Raider. I didn't really do much for this. Basically, it's a small butt, so basically it'll trade for anything big, so I kept it on the defense. But because I have things like the Fire Nation Cadets, I can slip through because of the Deserter's Disciple. It does trigger the raid. It says when this creature enters, if you attack this turn, create a clue token. So that's very decent. You should keep this on the back, especially when you have like Earthbend creatures that come in for 4. 4 is basically the average big creature number. So this is a good way to be able to hold back big attackers without blocking and making sure you actually trade a blocker and an attacker. Then there's Rough Rhino Cavalry. I call these Rough Riders. I remember these guys are the ones who helped hunt Avatar Ang in season 1. Actually, I like these ones. Of course, you have the main firebender guy in the middle, but then you have like the Naginata guy. You have the archer here in the background. You have the guy with the Usarigama, or was it just a meteor hammer? I'm not sure. And then just like a regular sword guy here. So it's a little bit. I mean, again, I'm a big fan of the show. I don't remember everything, and I can't remember all of the details, but this is one of the ones I liked. Plus, 4 or 5 kind of big to cast. So, but 5/5 again is very big. And firebending 2. So once you again, like if you have these three, you attack. You can use the 2 mana to make this a 3/2 while it still being unblockable. And because the firebending creates a mana, you can use the exhaust abilities as instant speed. So basically, you can turn it into a 7/7. So this will definitely trade with at least one creature, even if you block with its block. War Balloon. This is very interesting. Again, 3 to cast for a 4/3 actually is a very good rate for a 4/3. Of course, it's an artifact. If you put a pay one, put a fire counter on the vehicle, there's 3 fire counters. It's an artifact creature, so pretty decent. By turn 4, you have a 4/3. Pretty good, decent. That's also again one way to utilize your firebending mana because you can use it at instant speed, meaning at any time. And that was basically my use for Ty Lee because I really can't use Ty Lee as a deep blocker, but I can use her to pilot the war balloon. Plus, I can use the ability of this to make sure that the war balloon can't be attacked. But I mean, she has to attack too. That's the combos there, the synergies there. How to start a riot? Basically menace. You want to menace your big scary creatures, so you can menace your rough rhino cavalry. Menace the rough rhino cavalry. Menace meaning you can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures or Fire Nation raiders. So if you're small creatures, it'll at least be a 2 for 1. But the more important one is once you have a wide board, once you have a lot of creatures, get +2/+0, which can be a big swing at the later stages in the game. And of course, this is a Riot starter when they were all stuck in the Boiling Rock prison, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he's my favorite, one of my interesting characters. So basically, all around Again, another big it's the instant speed. If you're playing with firebending, and since it create wants mana, it cares about mana being spent at instant speeds. Having an instant like this is a big help. Basically, pay 5 instant 2/2. So basically, if you're looking at thinking about it, it's a 5 to cast, 2/2/2, so 5 to cast for a 4/4 with firebending one, pretty decent. Then you can flash this in. You flash this in as you're attacking. Spend either your firebending mana, or you can flash this in once you've full swung with all your creatures, and you'll make the opponent think, ah, you don't have any blockers anymore. You can You can play this in opponent's turn, and then you have blockers. The other important part is the flashback. So that means you can now spend unspent firebending mana to be able to play Fire Nation attacks. Make sure you read it correctly, because when I first played this, I thought it was 8 and not 9. So it's actually 8+1. It's 9 mana. I misread that once and I was called out for it, but it's still casual, so but it's pretty good. Firebending, synergies, and the Deserter synergy here. Boomy Bash. Booming Bash does damage equal to the number of lands you control to target creature. So once you're in late game, this is basically a kill anything. I think I've easily done like 7 damage using this card, so it's pretty decent. And the more important one is destroy target land creature non-basic land. There are some, I think, especially if you're playing against green and Basing Say, which has a land that creates earthbending abilities. So I think that'd be very good to be able to take that out. Also, I mean, it's very easy to make large earthbend creatures since you're able to stack earthbend on the same land. So this is very good. Very good removal. Vindictive Warden, Menace, again, for evasion. I actually, this also synergizes again with Searcher's Disciple. I was able to get a lot of damage in for that. Firebending again, to be able to pump up your other firebending buddies and the other instance, or for abilities like fire counters. But more important, also it has its own firebending um, ability sync here. So if you combine it with the Fire Nation Cadets or the Rough Riders, you can now ping 1 damage. Plus it's menace. Plus it's hybrid. Another one, although I got this primarily because it was a big butt 3/4, so it's able to block things decent. Firebending 2 again for possible uh more mana, more combat tricks. Was never really able to use the sacrifice another permanent to get the pumping because I didn't have instant speed ways of being able to sacrifice creatures. I basically like, oh, it's something nice to have once you have a deadly position. Sacrifice a creature. You sacrifice this to pump this. Google Administrator. Actually, this is where the it bonds with. I mean, it creates tokens, but I don't have a sack outlet, so that's 2 nice combos. So again, you attack with an unblockable or with a flying creature or something that can reduce a blocker. This activates raid, so it becomes bigger. So for 5 mana, 6/5, that's pretty decent. And then whenever this creature attacks, so importantly, it's an attack trigger. It creates a 2/2 red creature soldier with firebending. So more more things that you can sack to with this, or cheap blockers. Again, being a limited environment, having ways of evasion is very good. So these are basically the same. A 3 to cast, 1/2. It creates a clue token. Clue token. The necklace of Kara that she dropped probably. Yeah, this is a crew administrator. I think this is also in one of the prisons. I think this is a prisoner. Of course, Zhao is the bad guy from one hunting the Avatar. Other F references. War balloons, right? They have a lot of war balloons, especially when the outcome of end of season 1. Basically, they found this because they found the one of the air temples that was taken over by regular people, and then they developed steam balloons and air and gliders, so they were able to replicate their team in big problems in. Messenger Hawk, I don't remember much. Again, I'm putting this here as part of the evasion suite. Creates a clue. So this is actually pretty powerful if you have 2 of these in the group round, and then you sacrifice one clue token, suddenly it's from 2 damage, it becomes 6 damage. Big, big upgrade. Earth Rumble Wrestlers, nothing really to write home about. Sure, it gets a +1/+0 if you have a land drop. I just put this in as a fatty. I can just put in the on the ground to help stabilize any aggressive decks. I didn't really use offense, and again, it's the reach. I think one of the big parts of the reach is basically he's able to like throw this thing at flying attacker. So these are guys from the underground bending arena ring season 2. There's like the little badger mole guy, and then this big dumb sumo type, and then he's this guy. I like this one. This guy is basically he's the Iron Sheik, or who's the Russian wrestler? Basically, he's the foreign heel guy. So these are the Earth Kingdom. The bad guy is the Fire Nation. So he's the foreign heel guy, and this is the small guy. He dives underground. And the guy's just the Huzuna type. I think this is just a water type. Wandering Musicians, I got particular because it's a big block. I mean, again, fat butt, big defense. It's easy to use to block creatures with. And then when you attack with it, again, if you have lots of soldiers, lots of these guys, +1/+0 becomes a problem. So pumpers, I like pumpers. Goes along in the same sense as how to start a riot. Zuko's Exile, of course, this is another one. Useful because my since I'm in black red, I'm a little bit weaker on enchantment removal. So having this is good. It's 5 mana, but 5 mana isn't such a huge problem when you have a lot of firebending abilities that you can count on. But it does give a clue to the opponent, so there's a little bit of a trade off. But it's pretty good. Removal was very good. Of course, I got lucked. I lucked out. I was able to get a dual land. This is the Boiling Rock Prison, the Boiling Rock Prison of these guys, and the administrator. I think, if I remember correctly, it's the administrators from this episode. Anyway, again, dual land, just easy for the uh, mana fixing in the early game, and then in later game you can sacrifice the land to draw cards. So this is I was this saved me for a couple longer games. There, and then of course you got the mountain. Oh no, these are my mountains. Did I not get a? Did I just use? I just mountain sense. That's it. Oh, and then I wanted. We'll take this opportunity to go to showcase the cards that I did not use, but I pulled from the pack, from the draft. So first of all, you have this, the Rise of Sozin for black. Black. Where did I put it? So this I was lucky enough to pull. I'll showcase the rares that I have. I'll do it by colors properly. So I was able to pull a draft, the Rise of Sozin, which is a big destroy all creatures. Because I was using clear sleeves, I couldn't play this card specifically in my deck, so I had to use a. You can use this card to represent a double face card. Basically, it's a 6 mana Wrath, a little higher rate, but then uh, board wipe, so matters with you matters. But I realized that this is a better on a game two. You can sideboard this in game two because if you don't know that your enemy's deck, then you won't be able to use the choose a name card and be able to search it. That's the thing. Then if you flip it, I've used it once, and then when I used it, the opponent played made one of their big creatures indestructible, and it basically lost the game. So it's funny that the most valuable card in my polls ended up costing the game. But the flip side is very good. Menace, which means it can't be blocked by only blocked by 2 or more. Firebending 3. Then whenever Fire Lord throws in combat damage to a player, you may pay X. When you do, put any number of target creatures with total mana value of X or less from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield. Steal creatures. And again, the thing about this is that you can use this while in combat. So because a lot of people think that there's only 3 combat phases. You have the declare attacker stage, you have the declare blocker stage. You have actually no, you have the beginning of combat, the declare blocker attacker stage, declare blocker stage, combat stage, which is where the damage comes in, cleanup. So actually, in the last part, after the damage has been done, you can pay X and then still do the things. You don't have to wait. You can use the firebending mana for that. So this is a board wipe removal. I've only used it once, but then again, this is cool. Other black cards that I drafted that thought I would use but didn't really get to use was something like Ruinous Water Bending, which is basically Hama, the Blood Bender, if you remember correctly. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. If that special additional cost was paid, whenever a creature dies this turn, you may gain 1 life. You may the black blue water bend. Basically, water bend is while playing a water bend cost, you can tap your artifacts to help pays for 1. I didn't really use this -2 because I realized a lot of creatures that were kind of like two value. The tokens that are the soldier tokens I made this minus. And then when I ran into a lot of like go wide decks, I mean I could have sideboarded this in for things that do allies, but I more often ran into stuff like Earthbend, and it doesn't really hit. So I didn't really find a use case, but it could have been good. Alice Inspector, uh, this could have been good for a sacrifice a target for like deadly precision, or I basically only one to cast 1/2 mana. Again, this could have also menace. It could have activated raid had I needed it here, or Fire Nation Raider, but by the time I can drop them turn 4, turn 5, probably had more than one blocker already. The interesting thing about this one is that when it dies, sure it does one deal damage to me, but it does create a clue token. So it replaces itself with card draw, which is pretty decent. Did I miss any more thing? Of course, Rise of Sozin. So basically the guy actually it makes sense. I just realized that the Rise of Sozin is the one who started the whole 100-year war. So it makes sense that he's the one in black, and even if he's a firebender, ambition being one of the connected with black fire war. I understand there are 4 elements, but there are 5 colors in Magic, so that's where the black gets represented. Another one is Canyon Crawler. I vaguely remember this, but I didn't really use it. It's too big a cost for mana cost more than a 5. It's got to be something that really like wins you the game. Again, board wipe would win you the game. That's why I kept 6 cast. But this one is just it's a big 6/6 big death touch, but there are ways to deal with it, like Boomy Bash or Exile. Just have a bunch of pump blockers, but you can't swamp cycle in case you are up. Man, I think it's one of the good things about when they have uh cycling on big creature cards. So okay, you draw it early. You can't play it. At least you can play 2 to be able to play it over. This is one of the cards I really wish I would have been able to play. Again, it's 5 to cast, so it's fairly decent. But I traded it in for the removal. But this is a really strong card. Look, when Combustion Man attacks, Boom Boom Man, Sparky Boom Boom Man, if I remember correctly. Whenever Combustion Man attacks, destroy target permanent unless its controller has Combustion Man deal damage to them power. So 4 damage. You either take 4 damage to the face, or I let you, or I will able to destroy target permanent, which is a big thing because that means you can hit lands. I didn't have really many pump abilities. I except for how to start a riot, maybe wandering. So I was in a way of wasn't able to pump it up like that. But again, 5 to cast. I wanted my 5 to cast to have like big impacts once it hits the ground. Had lesser if I didn't have these as pull if I didn't have Rough Rhino or Cruel Administrator, I'd have put Question Man. Closest Revelations. This is one of the cards, the Lands Matter card. So it has exile cards on the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana. value is less than the number of mountains control, so really wants to be played in a monocolor deck. Closest remedy. This is on the fire, not the fire line, but yeah, this is basically where he communed with Roku. This is Avatar Roku, not the solstice, the longest day, shortest day of the year. Another the disciple. I didn't really need an additional. This would have been nice. Borcupine. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, which is nice, but I really don't have. This incentivizes you to keep playing a non-creature spells, but since you want to hold your non-creature spells as combat tricks and removal, you kind of do it as a reaction thing. So that's why I didn't really decide to put Porcupine. Abandoned attachments. You may discard a card if you do draw cards. And one of the things that are underrated in limited decks is card draw. That's why I considered bringing this because it is a red, so I can play. It's a hybrid mana. Hybrid mana means you can play either blue or red. But um, I need a more removal. I decided to put removal instead of card draw. Abandoned attachments is basically, if I'm not mistaken, this is the time where he was unable to use his. This is after season 2 when the lightning strike like somehow removed his bending powers or something, or no, stopped him from being able to enter the avatar state. So a basic Guru Patik, learn to let her go, or you cannot let the pure cosmic energy flow in from the. So of course, Avatar Ang didn't want to forget the Katara. This is very Buddhist kind of stuff, so he didn't uh decide to abandon his worldly attachment. Foggy Swamp Vine Bender. So this is an interesting one. Of course, this the swamp benders, vine benders. Basically, they're water benders that are able to move the water in the plants, which is actually, if you think about it, a big precursor to the water bending, the blood bending of Ama, water bending. So they're bending the waters in certain places. Again, it's green. I couldn't, so it's not in my uh color. But it's, I mean, 4 to cast for a 4/3 can't be blocked by power 2 or less. Very decent. Great. I just colors for it. This was something that was passed over in the second packs around. Earth and ally, 1 to cast green, and then this creature gets +1/+0 for uh each color among other allies you control, which is okay, but not very useful in limited. But this is a 5 color useful thing. Earthbend 5. If you can Earthbend 5, that's pretty nuts, man. But I got this because I want to build like a 5 color allies deck. Oh, this is, I'm lucky I got this. This one I got passed to me in the third pack. Normally, if you had gotten a Sokka Tenacious Tactician in the first pack, this would have been definitely the build around what you want to build around. As menace, which means it can't be blocked by or can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. Prowess, whenever you cast a creature, non-creature spell, gets +1. Other allies, you have menace and prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you do 1/1 out. So I got it. I picked it up. I rare drafted it because, well, it's a big card. It's good for commander. This is when they attacked in season 3, the Day of the Black Sun, perhaps. Okay, Serpent's Pass. This is when they were to the Great. It's not the Great Divide. I remember this is where the Unagi was. And they were traveling with Earthbend refugees, and I think where they saved, or Sokka saved, uh, Toph when she possibly drowning. Unblessed Peak when they met the dragons. This is the little arena that they had where they danced with the dragons. And Appa lands. So I couldn't not pick up. Basically, there are full art lands like these ones. Full art lands that feature Appa somewhere. Okay, so apparently this one doesn't feature Appa, but this is basically the giant lion turtle that was like a island, and this is actually, I'm not sure. This might be near the final battle because I remember when Aang and Firelord Oza were fighting, there were a lot of giant pillars. Might have been the eventual location of the final battle. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the Southern Air Temple. Basically, all the buildings were built underneath like overhang, cliff overhang somehow. And I think this is also where they fought Combustion Man, and may have had an encounter with Azul. Of course, you have the tokens. Tokens are cute. Got wanted posters for Appa and Aang. Allies. I think this might have been with the crew of Jet. Might have been with the crew of Jet. Of course, a Kyoshi warrior, ally, and Kara's poker necklace. That's it. That is the pulls for my draft deck. We'll make another video for the sealed deck that I was able to make and the jumpstart video. That. Paka.